My name is Grant Romundt, and I'm from Ocean Builders. And so basically, my project is we're building a floating home, and its design is based on the idea of an oil rig, but just scaled down really small. So we have a large pole going into the water, which creates buoyancy and pushes our house up above the water, so our house actually floats above the water. And I was speaking with Aaron and the organizer of this event, and he told me that this was coming up, and I thought it was a great opportunity to come here and meet people that were into innovative technology, and he thought I might be able to meet some people with interesting new technologies we could use in our floating homes. So our floating home design is basically like this, and so you have these pods that are kind of look like George Jetson homes. Instead of floating in the clouds, they're floating just above the water, and they have a pole. I don't know if you can see that on the camera, but the pole goes into the water. It's filled with air, and that creates buoyancy, so it creates our lift. And then very far down below that, we have very heavy ballast that creates a lot of stability. So we can have these floating in the water or just above the water, and it becomes very stable because now we're not sitting in the waves, which causes a lot of movement and turbulence. So this makes it actually very comfortable and nice to live in. Well, what's really interesting about these is we actually bought one of the largest 3D printers in North America. It's actually the largest in Central and South America. We're building in Panama right now. And the printer itself is 20 feet by 16 feet by 8 feet tall. So it's like a massive size printer. It's able to print parts that are 2,560 cubic feet in size, so it's just really massive. And we're able to eventually, probably within about a year and a half, we're going to be able to print the whole house with a 3D printer. But for the first stages, just to make things go faster, we're starting with printing the molds that will go into making the homes. And eventually we hope to get to the point where we can just press print, and 2 weeks later your house is printed. We launched our first prototype in Thailand last year, and that size was about 5.5 meters wide, and it was in the water for 2 months. And we built that to test a lot of engineering principles to make sure that it worked. And before we built it, everyone was saying, well, that design would never work. It wouldn't float. It wouldn't. Whatever, it would fall over. So we built the prototype, proved the engineering principles. You could actually walk on it. We stayed over on it. We were there. We had people that were living there on and off over the 2-month period. And now we're building. We have a home in Panama where we're building the next full-scale version. So this is now we hired the world's top architect, but he's an architect for the water. So call him an aquatect, because he designs things for the water. So his name is Koen Olthaus. He's from Water Studio in Netherlands. He makes a lot of floating homes and a lot of floating home design. So we came to him and said, okay, we have this design kind of structure, and we'd like to design what the house would look like on top of it. So we went over some designs and came up with this concept, which is very much like the George Jetson, very futuristic kind of design. And that's really why I'm here, because I'm trying to find the best technology we can to put in the house to make it as environmentally neutral or even environmentally restorative as we can. Because I think what we've done on land, building homes on land, we haven't done it very well, because usually you clear cut the forests, you turn houses into, it basically destroys nature. So when we build on the water, what we're doing is we're actually taking something that, where there's really nothing, there's really no life. People think that the ocean is just teeming with life. There's coral, there's lots of fish. But once you get out of the coastal regions, a few miles from land, from the beaches, it's kind of like a desert. It's like pretty much nothing. So anytime you put a structure in the water, in that kind of an area where there's just nothing there now, it becomes a habitat for life to actually turn into a home. So after the house, the original prototype was in Thailand, I was actually scuba diving around the base, and there was thousands and thousands of fish. And I was actually scuba diving for about 3 days before that, before we went to the location, and I saw more fish around our prototype than I did in other areas throughout Thailand that were very popular scuba diving areas. So we got inspired. We thought, okay, well, if we had this big of an impact already in such a short period of time, what could we do if we actually engineered the house to be something that actually helps to foster life? So we came up with the idea. Actually, there's several kind of ideas kind of intertwining, coming together for this. One is the idea of, well, why don't we 3D print the kind of like a skeletal frame for coral, and then there's some other ideas we're combining that with. We found that if you put a small voltage into steel, about like 1.3 to 1.9 volts, it actually causes the calcium to come out of the water and collect on the steel. So that's actually really interesting because coral needs calcium to build its body. So when we actually put a small voltage on the steel, it actually pulls all the calcium towards the 3D printed coral, or to the coral polyps, which is the smallest unit of a coral life. And so it basically gives them all the nutrients they need to really thrive. And whereas the last couple of years, the coral's been dying in a lot of places because it's under very hot temperatures, or very bad environmental conditions that's causing the coral to die. So when we bring the calcium to the coral, then it actually has to use a lot less of its life force to survive and thrive. So it now becomes much more resilient. So there's a couple of these techniques. When we combine them all, we think we can accelerate the growth of coral by 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 times, which is pretty exciting, where your home can actually become eco-restorative. And then the more homes we build, the better it is for the environment. So all that to say is we're doing things, we're trying to use technology to make better homes and make very interesting futuristic floating homes. What we're doing is just so out of the box. People have been talking about living on the ocean and building like floating cities. They've been talking about it for a long time, like decades, and even longer. But no one's really done it, and I think it's just out of the box, and it's not something that people are really thinking about, even though we had Venice in Italy, which was a floating city. So this is just like a futuristic new version of it. The website is oceanbuilders.com, and we have information on there. We also have we started an incubator. So basically we're trying to bring out a lot of new technologies. We have some really innovative technologies that help recycle water in the shower, that reduces your shower water consumption 90% and still gives you a full shower experience. And we're trying to integrate as many of these really simple techniques to be able to have the same quality of life and even better, but have less impact on the environment. So we started an incubator, like a technology incubator park in Panama, where we're building our first homes. And so we're excited about having people come down and contribute by helping us figure out new technologies that are environmentally friendly that we can integrate into their homes.